We are now live, and I want to thank every one of you for joining me on another edition of the Red Pill Diaries. I'm your host, Rashid, and without further ado, our returning guest, we have to bring her back on, Lieutenant Colonel Karen Kwiakowski, and it's an honor, as always, to have you on the platform. Thank you so much.
Well, thanks for having me.
Let's go right into it because Warhawks are going wild. And what, from your perspective, what is America's foreign policy? Because it seems like they're just throwing things up against the wall to see if anything will stick, because desperation has set in, because they're realizing that they are no longer the unrivaled superpower.
Yeah, that's what it is. I mean, some of the overseas media refer to the United States as a hegemon, right? So we're a hegemon, but we are a hegemon in decline. And so an empire in decline. But what we've done, and this is typical of empires in decline, is we have not adapted. There's no way to adapt. We're locked into our foreign policy. We're locked into our military strategy. And we've funded for it. We've spent trillions and trillions of dollars on it. We cannot alter it. But the problem is it doesn't work in what we're trying to do. And two things, we know it doesn't defend America. That's very clear. We are not oriented. Our military does not defend America. We do not have the system. And if you want to know what a defense looks like, it would be, you could look at Iran right now, right? I mean, Iran is, they've got of course, Iran doesn't go out and seek wars overseas, anything like that. They've been attacked multiple times. So they have prepared for being attacked. And who's going to attack them? Well, it would be the people that have been attacking them. That would be the U.S. and Israel. So they have learned a great deal about how we attack and what we do. And they know what our weaknesses are. And what do you think our weaknesses are? Well, one of them is logistics, right? Because we go around the world, far, far from home, with very expensive systems that have a long logistical tail. And we say, okay, we're going to beat you up for 3 days, and then you're going to do what we tell you. So Iran isn't having that, but certainly they've learned from our past experiences. They know that that we can't support a long conflict of any type. They know that our defenses overseas, our defense of Israel, the Patriot batteries, things like that, we've seen, we sent those to Ukraine also. We don't use them here in the United States, right? Because we don't defend the United States. We defend our various proxies. But those are running low already. Before this thing even started, Ukraine couldn't get the missiles that they need to put into the Patriot batteries. They couldn't get additional Patriot batteries. It's a shortage of those things. Well, Iran's not stupid. They're highly sophisticated military and government. We may not like their government, and we may say, oh, they support terrorists against Israel or whatever. They support Hezbollah. They support the Palestinian cause. Since when is that bad, right? I mean, the whole world supports the Palestinian cause. But even if you don't like Iran and you don't like their government, how they behave, and you don't agree with a Shia religious government and all that, okay, fine. But they have learned. They are capable of learning, and that's what the hegemon is not. Hegemon is incapable of learning. We have not learned, but we're learning now.
Mm-hmm. So it seems to me common sense, and I noticed that common sense is not so common in today's world. Common sense tells me if a greatest detonation is the world, if you rely on the gratuity and the benevolence of others to buy your debt to keep your empire going, and if you are in decline, wouldn't it be smarter to make friends along instead of alienating the entire world to try to hold on to that position of dominance? Because as history teaches us, all empires decline and fall. So
Mm-hmm.
it would behoove me to think that in your fall you would have some kind of common sense to say, let me cushion myself,
Mm-hmm.
because if I treat everybody better, maybe they will come to my aid in my fall. But it seems like America is just on this scorched earth policy, is saying that I won't even leave the world in a position where anybody can rule. I'll rule over the ashes.
Yeah. That has been the attitude And it is typical of empires to not go quietly into that good night, as they say. It's typical of them to kind of retain what they have. That's actually kind of like human nature in some ways. And our government is, we say, oh, we have a republic, we elect these leaders, and they put what's good for the country first. We know that's not true. What they do is they're human beings, and they behave like flawed human beings, which is not to do what you're saying is common sense, because it is common sense. It's not just common sense. It is the moral right answer, right? I mean, we are persisting in some very bad behavior as a country, both domestically, but particularly in this case, in terms of wars and telling people who they can vote for. I mean, right before we launched this attack, which apparently was planned weeks ago, including the start date, despite the fact that we were negotiating with the Iranians, and of course, in bad faith, of course. But I think a couple weeks ago, Trump has still talked about it. He is telling Iraq. So Iraq is part of this battlefield, but we're not in a war with Iraq, so to speak, right? They're our ally. But he has said repeatedly prior to this, and still talking about it, that he will not tolerate a particular leader that the parliament of Iraq is putting forth as the prime minister of Iraq. We said we will not have Maliki. Well, we had Malikis run the country before, but we have said no. Trump says no, you are not allowed to do that. Well, what kind of arrogance is that? And anyway, so nobody likes us, but partly nobody likes us because the way we behave, way our government behaves, this attitude, this hubris. So, and we're getting to see it play out now, of course, in this very illegal and unconstitutional attack on Iran. That's one thing, but it's kind of typical because, the kidnapping of Maduro was also not constitutional, and trying to threaten Greenland is not really constitutional. Something like that should go to the Congress, but Trump doesn't play it like that. But what we have here is failure to learn. We're relying on hubris. Trump had an opportunity to even make a better plan than what he had, which he had no. I'm pretty sure now at this point he just said, "Bibi, what do you want me to do? I'll do it." Right? That's not much of a plan. But Trump he has no excuse for not making a better plan, because Raisin Kane, the general that runs he's the chairman of the Joint Chiefs of Staff. He not only tried to tell Trump what the risks were here, he also told Congress. And when he told Congress, of course, he was telling the American people. And when that was reported, Trump said something like, "Hey, Kane will do what I tell him to do." What is that? That's an emperor out of control right there. That is a king who has gone insane. But Trump said that, so that's how he is doing it. That's how he's viewing this. I got a piece on my Substack, and it's at Lou Rockwell and Judge Knapp just this morning. But I kind of looked at the 5 reasons that Trump said he was doing this, because he gave that 8-minute video, I think, middle of the night on Friday night, right after they started this war. And none of those reasons are valid. I mean, none of them make any sense at all. They're not based on truth. They're not based on fact or logistics. And now, of course, Trump is really surprised that, a $300 million radar has been blown up. He's surprised at all the attacks on the, U.S. facilities in the region, which are plenty of them. He's surprised that, F-15s have fallen out of the sky. 3 of them just this morning. And did you see that news? Yeah. I mean, this is, he is surprised, and I don't know how he could possibly be surprised, because the Iranians said this 100 times. He's surprised that the Strait of Hormuz is not passing, it's closed. Now, it's not just closed because the IRGC said, don't come here, it's closed. It's closed because nobody's going to pay for insurance. So even if the IRGC says, hey, we don't want to hurt the rest of the world, go ahead, we won't shoot you. You think the insurance companies are going to believe that? They're not going to believe it. Regime change issue. Who's going to be the new person? Now, it's obviously not going to be our pick of I guess we were promoting the Shah of Iran's grandson, Reza Pahlavi's grandson. We're promoting him. And, he's out there in the news saying, oh my God, 3, 4 American soldiers were killed. This is such a tragedy. He said nothing when Israel and the United States bombed a girls' school, and killed something like over 100 people, many of them young students. I mean, elementary age kids. So, he has no credibility. He's not going to be the one. But then Trump said just yesterday, I think, that, well, I did have 3 other guys I was hoping to take charge of Iran, with this new regime change thing, since we got rid of their religious leader and their prime, their top guy, Khamenei. So he said, well, I had 3 guys, but it looks like they're dead now. And it's like, are you an idiot? I mean, my God. So this is like, you know what they say. It's like you give a 4-year-old a hammer or a loaded shotgun or a pistol. What do you expect's going to happen? Trump has no idea what he's doing, and he refuses to listen to objective military people. And I think Raising Cane, probably, I don't know much about him, but I think the chairman of the JCS has a pretty good idea of logistically how long we can last at the pace that we are losing our defensive capabilities and our radars, our everything that we require to continue to pound Iran. And also, Israel's losing it too. We're the biggest source of Israel's weaponry. So, when the chairman of the JCS or anybody in the Pentagon says, they talk about logistics, we know what Israel has also, except for their nuclear stash. They don't show us that. That's unfortunate. But all the conventional stuff, most of it we know what they have, because most of it we have given to them, or they bought it from us with U.S. taxpayer dollars that we sent to them, and then they bought, how we do with our aid to Israel. So we know what they have. And I think the Pentagon's concerned about it being used up rapidly. It's very expensive. We have, we've talked about this, I think, before. Everybody's pretty aware of our military-industrial complex, the $1 trillion a year to the Pentagon, maybe 1.5. What it has delivered is not a productive system of low-cost, replaceable items, right? In fact, even for Ukraine, which has been going on for 4 years, we had to kick back open a ammunition depot. And I don't know if it's in Tennessee, Alabama, somewhere. We had to, oh my God, open up the lines. We're running out of stuff. Ukraine's using up the stuff we've given them. So we are not responsive logistically. We don't have a robust system. We don't have a resilient system. That's just one of the problems, And the other thing is, of course, Iran knows our weaknesses, because they're pretty obvious, especially if you're the one being hit over decades. They're always threatening war with you. They're watching how we operate. We've conducted operations in the Middle East. We've left a mess everywhere we go. What they always talk about, 3 or 4 trillion spent in Afghanistan to change the Taliban out with the Taliban over 20 years. I mean, that's what we did. It's true. I mean, it's horrendously true. It's so sad, really. It's a bad situation. But Iran is right there with very good insight into the region. Their intelligence is as good as anybody's, and they're learning how we operate. They're learning what our weaknesses are. And you mentioned a country that's in debt, which that would be us, right? We're in debt a great deal. We print money. We want everybody to buy our bonds. Now, people are less interested today in buying our T-bills than they used to be. They still buy them. Some people do. But we create this massive debt, and then we go kick everybody's butt, or try to. We threaten people and beat them up. Well, that's not a very attractive thing. That's risky, right? And so, but we insist that everybody still support us in this. Money is important to us. Debt and confidence in our system is really important to our dying empire. So what is Iran doing? Well, they're hitting the financial centers. They're stopping all the airport travel in Dubai, the UAE, Qatar, all these places. There's no business being done. And those countries, Saudi Arabia, no business being done. How long can they keep that up? How long can they keep the airspace around those major airports safe or unsafe, rather? Well, as long as they want to. Pretty much as long as they want to. So, so they shut down the oil. That is a huge global factor that raises the cost of oil for everybody, including, well, obviously including the U.S., but all of these things that they're doing, it's a very comprehensive type of defensive war that Iran is fighting, and we're not used to it, right? Who do we hit? Who have we fought with? Let's go from most recent, Syria. Okay, yeah, their military was great, and we, had corrupted their government. Bashar, whatever, he leaves. We put an ISIS guy with a $50 million bounty on his head as the leader, and then entertained him in the White House 3 weeks later. So a month later, he was in the White House shaking hands with Trump. Trump said, "It's a great guy." Okay, we did not risk a lot of our own. We didn't risk a lot of our own, material men. Certainly, we didn't risk a lot of American soldiers or anything like that to have the Syria thing. Before that, we took out, destroyed Libya, right? And killed their leader, and they've been in a terrible state ever since. Now, Libya did have a tiny little navy, I think, because they have a seacoast and did a little navy, and not much air force, not much defense. So we just slapped them around and turned loose the gangs. Same in Ethiopia, same in Somalia, and then which one before that? Oh, I don't know. Iraq, Afghanistan. Those are well-known disasters in terms of weak enemies that still over time defeated the American, not so much the military, but defeated the intent that the governments of America, previous governments, had said they wanted, right? They wanted maybe Iraq has done it. They have a democratic Iraq, but then we don't like who they're electing. So that's not a success. If your objective was to make sure they have a democracy that elects only pro-American people, we didn't succeed. So our track record is very evident. Our weaknesses are very evident. Our vulnerabilities are very evident to the Iranians. And then the other thing is Trump is an idiot. I mean, seriously, he's already I don't know if he believes the polls. He apparently doesn't, because his popularity is low. It started out pretty good last year, but it's low now. He has destroyed MAGA because of Epstein files. Mainly, and also making war was a MAGA thing. You remember he ran on peace, and the MAGA people, a lot of them retired military, a lot of people who have not so much retired, but people who have served in these stupid wars in the Middle East, and they knew how stupid they were because they participated in them. They saw it, they witnessed it. They didn't want to do that anymore. They wanted to make America great again, and they meant by that they meant America, like in North America, our country as it exists between Canada and Mexico. They wanted to make that strong and healthy again, economically and every other way. Trump told him he would do that, but of course he lied. And he's now doing wars that he criticized Obama. He said, "Oh, Obama's going to do." Obama did not do that, and he did it. So now his own words, are coming back to haunt him. Anyway, he broke MAGA. MAGA was where his support was. That is the activist. That is what gets the vote out for Trump and Trump type people. So he broke that. His popularity is low. And then he never bothered to sell the propaganda line that you have to sell in America. He never sold the narrative that this was a just war, right? He just said, we're dealing with them. We're going to make a deal. We're going to make a deal. And of course, he was lying about that, just like he was back in June, right in the middle of negotiations, they start a war. But he didn't bother to really bring Americans on board. So already they don't like him. Already oil is high, gas is high. The economy is it's not that healthy for most average Americans. Then he gets in a war that he never bothered to bring them on board with. Now, this is one thing the neocons did very well back in 2002, 2003, right? It was all lies, but at least they bothered. At least they bothered to spread the lies, to ensure that people were inundated with a sense of fear of Saddam Hussein, right? A sense of fear. You have to have that if you want people to support your war. Well, they say less than 25% of the population, adult population, supports this war. And I guess he thought, well, I don't need them. Well, a country cannot go to war, especially wars of choice, unless you somehow make them popular amongst your own people. He hasn't done that. People are waking up today to see that 3 F-15s, not the newest thing that we have, but a powerful and expensive aircraft. They're seeing the pilots ejected and the airplanes are gone. And Iran said they took out one of them. The U.S. is blaming Kuwaiti air defense for inadvertently doing it, or friendly fire. It doesn't really matter. None of this, we did not agree to any of this. And Trump never bothered to get people on board. So he has to somehow make a success out of it, but that's impossible because he went into war unprepared. And we cannot make a success out of it. There's no way. He needs to back it down. He needs to do a taco, right? Trump always chickens out. We're waiting for that taco. And he's trying to do it because, I disagree. I know I'm talking. Let me shut up. You ask me.
No. Finish it. You're giving us a lot and we want to hear it.
The only thing I was going to say is I believe personally that Trump is lying. Well, he lies a lot, but I think he's particularly lying about the idea that we always planned for this to go 4 weeks, maybe 5. That's a bald-faced lie, because that's the exact thing that Raising Cane, the chairman of JCS, was trying to tell both Trump, his administration, and the Congress that we really, he was saying we don't have the stuff on the shelf to do this thing with only an air operation, naval and air operation. We can't lob missiles for these, we can't protect Israel for 4 weeks. And this was, I think, his concern. So, and Trump is, of course, denying this. Trump's making up stuff. Oh, yeah, it's all right. And so trying to set himself up for some sort of victory, but there won't be a victory here. Apparently, last thing I'll say, apparently the next leader of, very likely the next leader of Iran, I don't remember the guy's name, but his mother, his father, his wife, and his 1-year-old child were all killed, basically between Friday night and today. They've all been killed over the weekend. So if that's the next leader, you think you're going to negotiate with that guy? You think you're going to get some kind of positive treaty for America? You think Israel's going to be able to deal with that guy? Absolutely not. And who would? I mean, can you imagine that? Can you imagine what we've done? And then we expect them to just bend over and kneel. And they're using the words, Iran will not kneel. Americans understand, because we're not going to bend the knee either. Americans, we're really proud of the fact that we don't have to bend the knee to anybody, right? We're that's part of our politics. Well, Iran feels the exact same way, and they're not going to bend the knee. So Trump stepped into it big time.
I heard from a reliable source that after the assassination of the Ayatollah, that Trump passed messages through Italy to Iran to try to for a ceasefire, and Iran, the Revolutionary Guard said there will be no ceasefire. We will exact revenge, and we're going to hit you hard. There will be no more negotiations. And right after that, they raised the flag over the mosque, meaning that revenge is coming. So, I believe this is why they are trying to up the ante with war. But you said something earlier about Trump trying to pick leaders of other countries. This came out earlier today too. Last night it came out last night. And this is what Trump had to say. This is so arrogant. This shows you this guy is living in bizarro world, because in his mind, up is down and down is up and in is out and out is in. Mm-hmm. It says Trump says he's picked 3 candidates to lead Iran. It says, following the U.S. attack, U.S. President Donald Trump announced that he had 3 candidates in mind to lead Iran. I have 3 very good choices. The New York Times quoted the U.S. leader as saying, he declined to reveal whom he had in mind. I won't be revealing them now. Let's get the job done first. This is Trump after pleading for a ceasefire.
Yeah, it's right. It is. It's very strange. Everybody in the world who cares about politics tries to understand what drives Trump. What's going on in his crazy head? We don't know. I think he listens to the wrong people. It's like what you tell your kids, right? If you're hanging around with this bunch of kids, you're going to get in trouble, because they're going to get you in trouble. And this is kind of what Trump does. His friends are all Zionists for the most part. And so Zionism itself is a little bit topsy-turvy, right? I mean, this idea that a part of the book of I forget what book it is. That talks about. They said 3,000 years ago in the Old Testament that you get this land and it stretches from here to here geographically, and shut up about it. We're taking it. Who does that? I mean, that's just the most insane thing. But this is what kind of is used to drive the mini empire of Israel, and it's just a government of secular people. Most of those Israelis are not that run the government. The Israelis in the government. Netanyahu, for example, I mean, he's an atheist. He can wear his yarmulke all he wants to. He's an atheist. He's a politician. He's a mini emperor, and he's a little bit nutty. And same with Trump. But Trump's I don't think an atheist. But if you're running a religious country, there's a nice contrast between Israel, which is a religious country. I mean, in the sense of it's a country for the Jews, right? That's how they, it's a way to protect Jewish people around the world. It's a homeland, right? That's how they sell it. It's run by atheists, and Iran, which has been around longer than 3,000 years, is currently run by a Shia cleric, or it was, and it will be again. A Shia cleric will be the top. It will replace the next Ayatollah. And he's a very religious guy. I mean, this is his identity. And if he, it's interesting. I saw something from when they appointed 9 years ago, whenever Khomeini took over from the other guy, or Khamenei took over from Khomeini, right? So Khamenei, who they killed, along with his wife, just died too. I guess they hit him in his where he was living. When he was put forth by the group that appoints the next Ayatollah, he said, it's so amazing because we're not used to this in this country with Donald Trump, because Donald Trump is the best guy ever and smartest guy. Everything's golden. He can do no wrong, and nobody's ever done it better than Donald Trump. When Khamenei was raised up to be, and they said, we're selecting you to be our religious leader, our head of the Iranian state. He said in his public address to the people, to the crowds or whatever, he said, I can't quote it, I'm going to paraphrase it here. He said, I am not a religious scholar of the level that is what we would want for our country. He said, I'm not. I'm going to tell you that straight up. I have much to learn. And he said a few other things. That every one of the things that he said, he's very humble. Okay. Now, you can say, oh, that's just Persian culture to be humble. Okay, I don't care. That's what he said. The people, the Shia people, not everybody in Iran, and certainly not the westernized Iran and not the Mossad part of Iran, but the people in general appreciated him for the many years that he has served. And there's a lot of positive messages. But my point of it is, I'm not Shia. I don't know, but I know it's a faith. And Khamenei was consistent with his religious faith, very consistent in everything that he did. And then we have our ally, Israel, which is a homeland for the Jewish people that live all over the planet. And they're led by atheists and warmongers and liars and thieves. You can go down their government list, and this is who they are. Now, our Congress is filled with people like that too. Washington is filled with people like that too. But we're not a religious state. Right? We didn't claim that we were going to elect religious leaders who would have great morals. We didn't say that. That's not what our Constitution says. And we elect whoever gets elected, or we try to. And these people are often very immoral people, right? But we're not claiming that they're not. Israel is claiming to be a religious state for Jews that has the best, religious influences, and they're not. But Iran, who's the great devil, actually, their leadership, the Ayatollah himself, and the next one that comes, will strive first and foremost to be a good leader of Shiism, whatever that is. Now, Americans may not like or understand Shia Islam. We may say, oh, well, that's no good. Well, I'm sorry. In this country, you can say it. It's freedom of speech, but the same First Amendment that protects your ability to criticize somebody else's religion also allows it. Also protects that religion, that religious practice. So Americans understand it's not our business to tell other people how to live. But Trump doesn't understand that. And of course, Netanyahu is a murderous bastard. So he wants to cause chaos and kill his enemies in the most cruel and spectacular way, which is why, we say, well, Israel and the U.S., we must have really good targeting information. We've been looking at Iran and planning war with Iran for 35 years, right? So we must know everything and where everything is. And yet we hit a girls' school. Israel is now bombing hospitals in Tehran. They're carpet bombing residential areas in Tehran. Okay, so the morality war, on the line of morality, yeah, Iran's doing a lot better. They're doing tons better. So anyway, it's very frustrating. I mean, I think the sense that Americans have, the average American is, why are we doing this? They didn't threaten us. Trump promised he wasn't going to get in wars, particularly criticized the potential of getting in a war with Iran. Remember when we criticized Obama for it? And even Biden, Biden's getting some wars. Well, Trump's doing this. It's against what his voter group wants. I don't know where the Democrats stand. A lot of them are bought and paid for by Israel as well. Our whole Congress is occupied territory for sure, politically. But yeah, the Democrats really need to step up. And if they have a peace-loving bone in their political body, they need to stand up and do it. And the Republicans, half or a fourth of the Republicans are already anti-war solidly, and they will criticize it. But this is for domestic purposes. The Democrats better wake up. Because American people do not support this. They don't want it. It's costing us literally, we'll spend $1 trillion on this if it lasts more than, we've already lost, huge, we've taken more losses this weekend than I think the Americans have taken in our military in years. So what does that tell you? Well, Trump is the leader. Maybe we should have taken that telephone away from him. I'm telling you, maybe we should just let him do stuff, let him talk, but keep him in kind of a box.
Oh,
because this is bad. Oh, and also I've heard, I can't verify this, but I've heard that the USS Lincoln, which is off of the Straits of Hormuz size in the Indian Ocean, has pulled back. Because they were attacked with they were targeted with ballistic missiles from Iran, and they're not saying what it is, but they have moved out. They've moved back. So that's not the sign of a dominant hegemon at the peak of hegemony from the world. It's a sign that we've gone in unprepared, lied about it, and now he's trying to figure out what to do. What can he do?
And also, there were reports that Iran sent drones to Cyprus.
Yes.
And that was being reported in the British newspaper, that they were telling the British military to stay inside and stay out of the way, because Iran has already sent drones to Cyprus.
Right. That's right. The British are a great example of what happens when you aren't the hegemon anymore and you don't really go gracefully. They have the British government has a huge, big mouth. They're the big players in Europe about keeping this Ukraine war going, right? They've been on the Ukraine anti-Russia thing for years. And there was kind of a funny situation that happened about a year ago, I think. And they said, well, we're going to send troops. The UK said, we're going to send some troops. We're going to put together an EU army and we're going to go help. And I think France and Germany all said, yeah, we got to do that. Yeah, and then they showed the numbers that the UK was going to put together, and it was like a handful. And it's like, are you freaking kidding me? Their army is small. They don't have it. They got nothing. But they are a hegemon that's long past their prime. They still have some financial ties. They have influence, but yeah. So it's crazy. So, yeah, they told their folks to shelter in place or get out, and again, though, what Iran is doing, and they planned this, not only did they plan it, they told everybody repeatedly during the negotiations that if they were attacked, this was going to be everything that the U.S. was at, any allies of Israel. If Israel attacked them, U.S. attacked them, same thing. We're attacking where your troops are. And they did that. And then everybody's like, in Washington, it's like, wait a minute. Why are they hitting us in Qatar? Why are they attacking the Fifth Fleet headquarters in Bahrain? I don't understand. Why are they attacking? They never did that before. And it's like, are you stupid? They not only told you they were going to do it, our intelligence has revealed the capability. that they had to do it. They have stockpiles and storepiles. They have a militarized economy. It's unfortunate that they don't have that Iran does not have a more vibrant economy. Part of that is, I don't know, 45 years of U.S. sanctions. That has an impact, kind of like what we did to Cuba. Cuba has, we always talk about the potential, or the Cubans in Florida talk about the potential that Cuba has. Well, it could probably have reached some of that potential if we didn't embargo it and isolate it and treat it like a pariah. But again, we don't, the people in Washington don't make the connection between their role in creating problems. This is like the immigration thing. Trump closed the border. Okay, great. He did close the border, whatever. But why were so many people coming across the border? And yeah, sure, maybe Biden had a loosey-goosey border. I get it. But why were so many coming north?
Mm-hmm.
Well, some of them were saying looking for a better life. But why are they looking for a better life? It's wonderful in Central America. I mean, everybody loves Costa Rica. People love South America. They love Mexico. The warm weather, it's wonderful. But why are they coming up here to get a better life? Because their countries are all screwed up. Why? Why are their countries screwed up? Oh, I don't know. Because maybe we picked some of their leaders so that they would be pro-America, militarized little dipshits. And we said, you run the country and we'll support you. And if you have enemies, we'll help you kill them. Well, so in a sense, don't we bear some responsibility, at least Washington, in creating situations that later come back to bite us? That's the immigration problem is not something that just spontaneously happened. Cuba's the economic troubles in Cuba is not something that just spontaneously happened because the Cuban people just can't fix their country. No, we helped them not fix their country, and what we've done to Iran has actually, made them the country they are today, good and bad, and has allowed them to prepare for this and be able to prosecute this war. I don't know if you ever read. There's a little short story by I want to say Heinlein. It's either Heinlein or anyway. It's oh my God, I can't think of the name of it. Anyway, it's a short story, science fiction, about a futuristic society where if you had everybody has to be equal, totally equal. And so if you were born, and people aren't born equal, right? So some people are born smarter, some people are born more athletic, some people are coordinated, they're dancers, whatever. So what they did was, if you were a dancer, ballet dancer was one of the characters, they made sure that they weighted down her arms and legs, and if and the one that was a thinker, if they started thinking about something, they had implants that would make noise. So if you started thinking about something, they went, processing data, you would have pain. And what happened as a result of this is a number of these folks accommodated those restrictions and then surpassed them. So the guy who was the athlete who was very powerful got even more powerful because of the weights that he still did it. The thinker learned how to concentrate and think very much better. The dancer was able to surpass all the restraints and be a wonderful dancer. So, of course, in the end of that story, they killed all these people. They got rid of them because they had, exceeded, they had gone beyond the system. But the idea that when you try to keep people down, sometimes they get stronger, they get smarter, they get faster, they get more connected to each other. Well, that's what's happened in Iran. He's like the Iranians are going to rise up against their government to agree with us. No, you attack their country. Well, what happened if our country was attacked? The Democrats, the Republicans, the Greens, and the Libs, and anybody, libertarians, all be coming together to defend our country. We would work together. We would put aside any differences we had, and we would defend our country. Most people would do that. That's a natural response. But we think the rest of the world's not like that. You attack, you kill their religious leaders, spit on their religion, and then you say, "Oh, why don't you join us? We don't like Shias. We hate Shias, and we're going to kill your next Ayatollah too. But why don't you join us?" Who believes that, except for Washington D.C.?
And Karen, I've thought about this over and over again about the deliberate attacks on Iran. And you could tell that this was not just something that came out of the blue. This was vindictive. This was strategic. This was planned, because not only did they attack Iran, they attacked Iran in the holy month of Ramadan, and they took out the supreme leader in Shia. And what's crazy about it is that he knew that his body was frail. And I remember listening to him saying that his body was frail, and his security. So Trump is talking about, we know where he is. Well, everybody knew because it was open to everybody to know. And as his security tried to take him to a safe place, he said no. The majority of the Iranians will not be in safe places. I'm going to stay at my home, and if death comes to me, death comes to me, which I thought that was admirable and honorable. And then they took him out in his home, not in a bunker, not behind, and so when you look at Netanyahu and you look at Trump, this has to, when someone yells out Allahu Akbar and they blow up something, they'll call that Islamic extremism. Well, to attack on the holy month of Ramadan, that has to be called Christian Zionist extremism, to do what they did, because that did not come out of the blue.
That's right. That's right. And if the U.S. was threatened by Iran, I mean, a real threat, like they were equivalent to us, and they were going to lob bombs and had done it into our country, and it's an actual war between people, which had been started for maybe no reason. But if that was happening, we would probably attack during Ramadan. We wouldn't care, right? And Israel does this all the time. They constantly harass people during Ramadan in the territories, in Gaza, everywhere. They show total disrespect, which is well beyond what they do during Ramadan, but they totally disrespect any type of Islam, and they totally disrespect Christianity too. That's the other problem. Well, they're atheists. They disrespect Jewish values, and this is the problem in Israel. So many Jews around the world will never go to Israel now. They will never commit aliyah. They will never move there, because they see what the Zionist state does in their name, and it's repulsive. It's against the Jewish principles as well. But the fact that we did that, and they hadn't even attacked us, and we were in the midst of negotiations where, strangely enough, those negotiations were working. And I was actually surprised to see some of the things that Iran had agreed to in the very last set, which was Thursday. We started attacking them on Friday night, and Thursday I think they ended the third round, I guess, or maybe fourth. And they had agreed to not only no enrichment, I think, they had agreed to no stockpiles of previously enriched stuff, and they were going to let that be out of the country, and they would not have it, and it would be verified by inspectors, that kind of thing. That's a big give, really, if you think about it. I mean, you can imagine the U.S. coming to the table like, oh, well, yeah, come on in. We'll do this, we'll do that, we'll submit. It was a very submissive gesture, but according to the Omani guy who was hosting and kind of seeing these negotiations, that was agreed to. Well, that's a huge win. That's a huge political win. If Trump had seized upon that, I don't think the Iranians themselves would have seen it as a sign of strength, but Trump could have sold that as a real victory, and made an agreement. That is something he said he wanted. But see, clearly they didn't want that. This war was planned. These negotiations were all facade on the American side. They said this was planned at least 3 or 4 weeks ago. Probably, they said the last time Netanyahu came to Washington was about a month ago, and they said that's when they set the date. So they set the date a month ago for the 10th day of Ramadan, 9th or 10th. And I think they thought it would be over with by Purim, which is a Jewish holiday celebrating liberation from Iran. I thought, no, honestly, symbology of this, I think honestly they thought it would be over with by Tuesday. And today is the day before Purim, and Jews are supposed to fast on that day. They don't do obviously an extended 30-day fasting in general, but different religions, different techniques, but the Jews have a great many religious ceremonies. Today's the day of fasting. Tomorrow's the day of celebration from liberation from the Iranian despots of 2,500 years ago, whenever it was, 4,000. I don't know where the dates are, but and I think that's really what they intended. Let's hit them in the mid part of Ramadan, and then we'll have a Jewish celebration on Tuesday. Honestly, this is how stupid they are. This is how insane They really are. And it's really hard to root. I don't root for Israel in any case. I think they have manipulated our government into so many bad decisions, and I'm not a fan. But I can't root for Washington D.C. in this war. I cannot support them in this. It's one thing if they planned it out and it made sense. They applied common sense. They said, well, there's real reasons here. We have real ability to handle plan A, B, C, and D. If things go sideways, we have a plan. They have no plan. Israel said, we'll make it 3 days. We'll celebrate overcoming Iran with their new government that's going to be Israel and America friendly. Where do they get that from? They just pull it out of the sky. It's absolutely insane. And I just don't know how it's going to end up. But I can't fault Iran. And Iran keeps saying, we are firing at military targets in a defensive war. We were hit first. We were attacked first in the middle of negotiations where Iran bent over backwards to please the United States. So how can you fault them? We should hope in this country that if we're ever attacked, that we work as well together as a society and as a military as Iran is doing. That we understand our enemy very well. They understand American operations. They understand Israeli operations. And they are adapting to that. One of the things they do, which we do not do, we have very centralized control of our military. They have decentralized control. So if the top guys are gone, the lower guys got their orders. It's almost like how we do submarines, right? The submarines go down below the ocean. Supposedly they don't communicate when they're there. That's probably not true anymore. But in the old days, they couldn't communicate unless they came to the surface. They rarely came to the surface. And so they had operational orders that they would follow, not knowing what had happened. Maybe Washington was gone, but the subs would have their orders. This is part of the nuclear Armageddon that would have happened if this had gone too far. That's a decentralized form of military operation, and it gives you resilience. And that's the whole purpose of submarines, is to survive and continue the war even if your politicians are gone. Well, the whole Iranian Republican Guard, their military, their whole system is based on that same type of decentralized resilience. If we could learn anything in Washington, we would actually sit back, end this war. I don't just stop doing what we're doing, tell Israel to sit down and shut up, which we will never do. And then learn from it, right? Because we don't learn from our successes. And in this country, we don't even learn from our mistakes. 20 years in Afghanistan, $3 trillion. I don't know how many U.S. veterans are messed up in the head. We sent guys there 3 and 4, 5 tours, back to back. What we did to the Afghan country and to their cities and to their government, they are still recovering from that. They can't recover from that until we left, and we didn't leave until a couple of years ago. We didn't learn any of. We thought that was a success. Washington thought that was a good thing. We didn't learn anything about how badly we conduct warfare. But Iran has learned, and now we're seeing what happens when a prepared recipient of America's wrath and demonstration of firepower. Now we're seeing what happens when people can actually fight back. We haven't had anybody that fights back. I can't remember my lifetime except for Vietnam. They were fighting us in Vietnam. I was just a kid then, so I don't really think about it. But since then, we've never fought anybody that fights back. Even the 2 invasions of Iraq, it was short-lived when they were actually hurting us.
Mm-hmm. Now, and I know I've had a lot of your time, but I want to ask you 3 strategic questions. Let's put on your colonel cap for a second. Okay, with the missteps that the Trump regime and the Netanyahu regime has made with this strike on Iran, how does this work out for America? Around the globe, but first dealing with West Asia because of the depleted missiles, the depleted air defense systems, and the overworked and overstretched military.
Mm-hmm. Well, it doesn't really work out. The Gerald Ford has a big sewage problem on there. The toilets don't work. You've read about that. Have you read about that? In the Gerald Ford is over parked outside of Haifa right now, And it came straight off of the Caribbean duty that it had when they kidnapped Maduro. And it was on its way to Norfolk to get R&R, but mainly repairs, because toilet problems are one of many problems that had to be repaired. And they knew about it. And they got told en route to that to go over. So the Gerald Ford folks, 5,000 folks there, and the other people that are in the ships associated, they've been at sea for over 240 days. Can you imagine that? 19-year-old, 20-year-olds on a ship under stress constantly, living in that environment, no toilets, or the toilets are not working right. So you can imagine that's a huge problem. 240 days. So mothers, fathers haven't seen their kids in almost a year. This was not what they signed up for. Anyway, so we weren't prepared. The whole thing is jacked. But from a strategic point of view, you would think if we would plan at least plan B for a longer war. We would plan for the reactions that the Iranians told us they were going to make. They told us multiple times, if you attack us, if Israel attacks us, U.S. military in the region, U.S. forces in the region will be war targets. They said it. They must have said it 10 times. They said it 20 times. And what did we take? What did we do with that? If we were not listening, because we have got very little defenses going on with this for our forces, which is why we've taken a lot of hits there. No, from a strategic sense, if you really wanted to do this, there's three things we would have done ahead of time. What has brought the American people on board, making out Iran to be a great threat, which they didn't do, and Iran isn't a great threat. So it would have taken a lot of time to build up that lie. We did not do that. We would have prepared logistically for a longer war. Even if we didn't believe it was going to take that long, we would have done it. We would have beefed up our protection for our forces in the region. We did not do that either. The only forces we are protecting is Israel. That's only forces that that's why the Gerald Ford is off of Haifa, to protect Israel. So those 3 F-15s that got shot down, we said we're blaming the Kuwaiti air defense. So we are calling on our allies who are not built for war, certainly. We're calling on them, oh, you use your air defense to protect us. We're saying, oh, you do that. And that's not something that that was almost like a passing assumption. Oh, yeah, you'll do that. So, of course, what Iran has done is made all of these Arab nations that are American allies, the members of the Abraham Accords, and all these people that say, we're just trying to get along, make some money, we want to get along with everybody, wherever the business is. Well, they're living with their decisions. And we, the Americans, the great American military, is hanging them out to dry. We're not helping them. We're saying, hey, we got bigger fish to fry. We're trying to protect Israel. We can't even do that. So this is all stuff we would have planned ahead of time. So we're not doing any military planning. We're not doing any American narrative control. It's obviously that narrative is not working for Trump. It's not working for Israel. And then the last thing, of course, is I think just this idea of regime change. Like, is that really a military mission? And if it is, how would we do it successfully? Oh, I don't know. Let's go look at our track record. Yeah, we don't know how to do that successfully. So throwing that up is the number one reason. Although Trump's trying to backwalk that now. He's trying to walk it back. But that was his first thing. That's the thing he said in his 8-minute speech on Friday night was, regime change. And yet it's backed up by nothing, so superficial. But again, hegemon in decline. It's just the empires, when they fail, they make bad assumptions. They're not prepared for the problems that they cause, and eventually they get taken down. The problem is, as Americans, we're going to all pay for this, and I'm not even talking about the blowback that we're going to get around the world. I mean, you mentioned the Ramadan, the fact that this attack was so brutal, and again, against a lot of civilian as well as military targets. In Ramadan, we have total disrespect for not just Shia Islam, but anybody's religion. Sunni. We like Sunni Islam. Yeah, that's the Egyptians. That's the half of Iraq. We like the Sunnis. That's the Taliban. What? Come on, they don't. That is just stupid to think that they'll side with us over, the the brothers, their Islamic brothers, even though they fight amongst themselves and argue and debate, it's again, you bring in that other, you attack one, the brothers, the family sticks together. And apparently in America, our planners and our politicians don't understand this. They don't, it goes back to what you said. There's no common sense being applied here at all.
But do you think that that will lead to the collapse of American power in West Asia, or what they call the Middle East? Because I see this rapidly evolving into a collapse of American power and influence in West Asia.
Yeah, well, certainly our allies have gotten a really clear idea this weekend of how much we value them. And there's only one ally we value, and that is Israel. And Israel could care less about us, but we value them, whether it's blackmail, who knows why it is, but that's a fact. Then our other allies in the Arabian Peninsula and elsewhere, where we have our military bases, we clearly treat them like dirt, and we aren't protecting them. We're not protecting their political structures, which have been the ones that brought them over to the American side. We show no loyalty and really no capability or planning to show loyalty. We're basically rolling them under the bus. That is going to have very significant ramifications. Uh, the money that the world invests is not going to go to the US. It's not going to go to US allies because the risk is too high. And we've just increased the risk even more. So all of this thing, when the money flows, the military runs out of weapons, and Americans have to be taxed even more or sacrifice even more of what they want to pay for a rebuilding of our military, rebuilding of all these facilities. I don't think they're going to stand for it. So I think the big change is going to happen as a result. And maybe that's the blessing of it all. I mean, there's no justification for anybody being killed by the government, okay? But governments are doing it and people are dying. But the end result of this, thanks to Iran really understanding us better than we understand ourselves, the benefit may be that we'll have a real conversation about global militarization, that will stop it, that will pull back, and we'll say, you know what, we have to pursue peace legitimately, which is a very popular message. Trump used to say it. People used to believe him. He himself has lost all credibility, though. This is a big problem for him personally. But I think for our country, this will cause a conversation. There's many voices that will weigh in on this. And I think that conversation is something we're going to have. We're definitely going to have. You don't lose 3 F-15s in a day for nothing. We still haven't got the full count of American soldiers and naval people that have been killed. Not at all. Not at all. I mean, you see these explosions. They're hitting hotels that are filled with American officers and enlisted folk who were taking shelter. They know where our people are, and they're killing them. So we're not getting the true story. When it comes out, and it will, we need to talk as American people. Are we a republic or are we an empire? And let's hope that we choose republic. We pull these troops back. We don't rebuild these bases and facilities, and we don't send people over there. And we start being friendly and cooperative and take care of our own first before we start doing other people's bidding. I think that conversation is coming.
And I think that we won't have to worry about the rebuilding of bases and the extension of empire because of the economic situation that is now taking place. Excuse me, because when we look at the nations abandoning the dollar, we look at the constant military pressure domestically and abroad. We look at the great cultural, financial, political divide in America. Then we look at the alienation of nations around the globe, and we look at nations are now shunning buying U.S. bonds, and the Fed is the buyer of all the bonds. Sooner or later, the chickens will come home to roost, and nobody will have to force the United States out of West Asia. The financial burden will become too great for her to maintain these bases. And by saying that, I was leading into the last question. Is this the fall of America and the end of the American empire?
It could be. It absolutely could be. Empires, they did take a long time to fall, but we've been falling since World War II, really. So it takes a while, but things like this, which are so obvious to everybody, right? Like, wait a minute, I thought we had the most powerful military in the world. Why were you fighting 3 weeks later and taking all these losses? So it's enough of a big story that people that weren't paying attention before now come and start paying attention to those who have been warning about this. The chicken's coming home to roost for sure. And there's been many, that's a growing chorus in this country. But now you get more people asking the question. And then we say, well, what do we want as Americans? And I can tell you, Americans do not want to be in any kind of war with Iran for no reason. There's no reason for it. And they don't want to defend Israel. They want Israel to defend itself if that's what has to happen. They don't want to do it. So let's hope that our true American voices, that we come together, that we talk, that we debate, but that we come together and decide we just want to be what we used to be, which was a country people looked up to, people wanted to come to, a prosperous country that tried to trade with everybody. And, Trump, honestly, with his tariffs and his wars, he's the opposite of what any average American wants. If you ask them what they want to trade, they want to prosper at home. They don't want war. They don't want to lose their kids, have them come back maimed or suicidal because of some stupid war that meant nothing to the security of our country. So hopefully we'll come together too. Maybe Trump is doing us a favor by being so stupid. It's possible.
When you were talking, the light bulb came on. I was thinking about the economic situation in America, right? And you were talking about Israel. Well, this is something that just popped in my mind. Well, when America has to come back and pull herself from those bases because of the financial burden, Israel will collapse economically because it relies on the U.S. financial system to keep it afloat. So that's two birds with one stone.
And also, Israel's economy, just like ours, and this is part of the problem with our empire, with the United States, is our economy is heavily biased towards military technology, production, and that kind of thing. Even though we don't have a good logistics ability to support all that stuff, we do make a lot of. That's where we make a lot of profit. We export a lot of that to Europe and all around the world, Japan, India, anywhere. And of course, Israel's economy is also very military oriented. If that is eliminated as a growth area, Israel itself has to learn to produce. And Israel, because of what they've done in Gaza, not just in the past 3 years, but what they have always done in Palestine, which is the most worst apartheid you could imagine, constant degradation of any economic ability for the Palestinian people. But because of their behavior, people are not buying Israeli goods. So when they stop selling military stuff to us because we can't afford it and we don't want it, we've changed our mind, they really are going to have to revamp their economy and refocus it and their behavior. And I honestly don't think they're able to do that. But luckily they're small. Maybe they'll go away. Maybe they'll get a completely new situation for themselves. But we should be out of it for sure. A lot of change needs to happen. Reorientation of our value system in line with what Americans really want, and really what most. It's funny because Israel's supposed to be safe for Jews. It's the most unsafe place for Jews that you can be, and it has been like that for some time. So when your fantasies aren't working out, sometimes you gotta give them up. You gotta wake up and say, what do I really need to be doing with myself? And that's what our country needs to do. Israel too.
Thank you so much. Everybody stay put. The Colonel gave us double the time that we asked for. I want to thank you so much for giving us. I mean, this was a blessing. And I really, really enjoyed the conversation. Thank you so much. I'll send you the video shortly.
Oh, absolutely. Well, thank you. It's always fun talking to you.
Be blessed and be safe.
Yes.
Everybody, listen, we have a packed week of guests coming on. We have tomorrow we'll have Professor Kevin Barrett on. We'll have later after that we'll have Larry Johnson on. The following day we'll have KJ Noy on, someone else on that day too. Then Thursday we'll have Dimitri Lascaris on, and Friday we'll have E. Michael Jones on the platform. So we have and Sunday, I believe it is, we'll have Professor Salim Mansour on the platform also. So I just want to let everybody know this. Now, Grizzly Martin, when you said this, Saudi will prop them up. I don't think so, because you have to understand something. The Saudi economy is tied to the United States. A lot of the money that they generate goes through banks in the United States, and the United States has to say yay or nay on a lot of the things that the Saudis do, the same way that they do with Iraq, and the same way they're trying to set up a system with Venezuela. So when the system goes, those who are tied to it will go with it. And I think Arabia is their economy is fragile because it's largely dependent on oil exports, and we see right now that Iran has closed the Strait of Hormuz. So I think a lot of things are going to shake up in the coming days to weeks. If this thing continues to go on, which I believe it will for a while, because I don't think Iran is in a position now to negotiate, and I don't think the people will allow that because of the blatant disrespect of what just happened, of the Ramadan, the assassination of their highest cleric, or the West calls Mullah. And so I think now war is the only option for a while. Also, I want to say this: a Israeli Air Force colonel or general was killed. Also, 2 U.S. drones were shot down by Iran over the last few days. Also, so and a warship was grazed, according to videos, by an Iranian missile. So I'm going to get more information on that, and I'm going to talk to a few sources. But I just wanted to let everybody know that I appreciate your time, because you did not have to spend it here with us. But I hope that spending your time here, you got an equal or greater return. And remember, as I always say in closing, I say this: do right by others, not because there's some material gain that be had or because of some accolades. Do right by others because it's the right, the humane, and the godly thing to do. Because even when no one else is watching you, remember that God Almighty is watching you. As my late, great, and beautiful mother would always say, God sits high on the throne of power, but he looks low at the actions of man. Know that I love each and every one of you who loves truth, but know that the love that I have for you will always pale in comparison to the love that God has for you. Until we next speak again, stay strong, stay true, but above all things, remember to stay righteous. Hey, mama, your baby boy loves you more than life. Thank you, everybody. Peace. We're out of here.